Welcome to my channel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing content. Let's go. The 1956 Canadian 5-cent piece, commonly called the nickel, is a classic mid-century circulation coin that pairs one of Canada's most recognizable reverse designs, the beaver on a rock, with the youthful portrait of Queen Elizabeth II introduced after her accession. On the reverse, the familiar beaver motif, perched on a small rock with the denomination above and Canada, and the date beneath, was designed by G.E. Kruger Gray and had become an enduring symbol of Canadian coinage by the 1950s. The obverse shows the first portrait of Elizabeth II used on Canadian coins, a laureate, right-facing bust executed from the Mary Gillick design, engraved for Canada by Thomas Shingles, and encircled by the Latin legend honoring the Queen, variably rendered as Elizabeth II Dei Gratia Regina, on pieces of this era. Physically, the 1956 nickel follows the long-running specifications for the pre-1965 nickel series. It measures about 21.2–21.3 mm in diameter, weighs roughly 4.54–4.59 grams, has a plain, smooth edge and a regular round, sometimes described in catalogs as 12-sided visually because of the denticles appearance on some photos, and in 1956 it was struck in essentially pure nickel, the familiar 99.9% nickel composition that defined the nickel coin for much of the 20th century. In terms of production and circulation, the Royal Canadian Mint struck a substantial number of 1956 nickels. Mintage figures recorded by numismatic references put the run at about 9.4 million pieces, so the coin is common in circulated grades today. Many surviving examples show the moderate wear expected from daily use in the post-war decades, while uncirculated survivors and proof specimen strikes are sought after by collectors who appreciate strong strikes and original luster. Historically, the 1956 issue sits in an interesting transitional chapter of Canadian coinage. It belongs to the first decade of Elizabeth II's portraiture on Canadian circulation coins, introduced in the early 1950s, and to the long-running beaver reverse program that had been in place since the 1930s, linking modern Canadian identity and Commonwealth continuity in a small, everyday denomination. In the collector market, the 1956 nickel's value depends strongly on condition. Common and worn pieces trade for modest premiums over face value, often only $1 or $2 for typical circulated examples, while high-grade, certified mint state specimens or attractive specimens with sharp beaver detail and full obverse devices can command noticeably higher prices from collectors and dealers. Specialized catalogs and grading services, e.g., NGC PCGS Coins in Canada, are the best sources for up-to-date price guides and for understanding the premium associated with particular grades, strike varieties, or exceptional eye appeal. Finally, for anyone handling a 1956 nickel, check the obverse legend and the clarity of the beaver details, ears, tail, and log surface to separate a heavily worn everyday coin from a piece worth conserving or grading. And remember that despite its modest face value, the 1956 nickel is a neat, historically rich example of Canadian numismatics, a small coin that tells a larger story about post-war Canada, royal portraiture, and a national emblem, the beaver, that continues to resonate with collectors today. The 1956 Canadian 5-cent coin marks an important period in Canadian numismatic history, coming just a few years after the beginning of Queen Elizabeth II's reign. Following the death of King George VI in 1952, Canada introduced a completely new obverse design featuring the youthful portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, symbolizing a new era for the British Commonwealth nations, including Canada. The 1956 nickel was one of the early issues bearing her image, making it historically significant for collectors and historians alike. This coin was minted by the Royal Canadian Mint in Ottawa during a time when Canada's economy was modernizing rapidly. Nickel, being one of the country's major natural resources, had been chosen for the 5-cent coin since 1922 to promote Canada's mining industry. The use of pure nickel for the coin's composition, 99.9% nickel, made it both durable and symbolic of Canada's industrial strength. The design of the beaver on a rock had been used since 1937 and became an enduring emblem of Canadian identity. The beaver, an animal closely linked to Canada's early fur trade and colonial economy, represented hard work, resilience, and national pride. The artist G.E. Kruger Gray designed this reverse motif, and it remained unchanged through decades, including the 1956 issue. Design and symbolism. On the obverse, the 1956 5-cent coin features the first official portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, created by British sculptor Mary Gillick. This portrait shows a youthful and graceful image of the Queen, wearing a laurel wreath, a traditional symbol of victory and honor, emphasizing her dignity and the optimism of a new reign. Around her portrait is the Latin inscription, Elizabeth II Dei Gratia Regina, meaning, Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen. The reverse design, by G.E. Kruger Gray, depicts a beaver sitting on a rock surrounded by water, with the words, 5 cents, above, Canada, below, and the date, 1956, prominently displayed. The beaver is not only Canada's national animal but also a long-standing symbol of the nation's development, reflecting the values of diligence and natural resourcefulness. Historical importance. The 1956 Canada 5-cent coin represents the early post-war years when Canada was asserting its national identity within the Commonwealth. Coins from this era, especially those bearing the first image of Queen Elizabeth II, marked a cultural and political shift, a bridge between tradition and modernity. The use of nickel from Canadian mines also reinforced national pride in domestic industries. Collectors appreciate the 1956 nickel for its combination of youthful royal imagery, enduring design, and strong metallic composition. It serves as a piece of history linking Canada's colonial past to its mid-20th century independence and growth. Although the coin itself is common, its historical and symbolic meaning continues to make it a popular item among numismatists.